All right, let me cut across to our big story here as Karnataka Health Ministry under Dinesh Gundu Rao has decided to crack down on multiple medicines and drugs, cosmetics, all on the list of substandard banned drugs. In fact, 14 of them have been identified. Karnataka at this point has identified literally 14 medicines and cosmetics that have been declared as substandard and banned from sale, banned from stocking or any usage across the state. In fact, the medical shops and hospitals have been very strictly warned to ensure all of this stock of these very medicines or drugs are cleared out. The Food Safety and Drug Administration Department has issued urgent orders to chemists, wholesalers, hospitals and doctors to immediately pull down these products off their shelves, stop prescribing them to people. Among these banned drugs, a few of them I could read out, many of them are on the list. In fact, all 14 have been listed out on our screens here. You could read them, but some of them include compound sodium lactate injection. This is basically IV fluid manufactured by Ultra Laboratories and Tambran Pharmaceuticals. Also, Pomol 650, a widely used paracetamol brand from Aban Pharmaceuticals. Also on the banned list is MITO, MITO Q7 syrup, which is a nutritional supplement for children from Bion Therapeutics India. These are just 3 of the names among the 15 or 14 that's listed out as banned drugs. In total, these different companies' drugs have been marked as not of standard quality by Karnataka's drug testing laboratory, which means that they failed basic safety and efficacy checks. The state has now ordered strict compliance to ensure that these unsafe drugs are completely withdrawn from the market. And while this is, in fact, a strong warning, it's certainly a necessary move. It raises, of course, many questions. How did these drugs, even in the first place, make its way into these medical shops and hospitals without proper quality checks? Who's accountable for such substandard drugs being available in pharmacy shelves so easily? This crackdown by Karnataka is, of course, a step in the right direction, but this isn't just a state issue. Substandard drugs are a national concern. What's needed now is a pan-India sweep to ensure that every drug sold in this country meets those safety standards and guidelines. Of course, bad drugs doesn't just always fail the patients. It's more importantly how it endangers lives. To discuss this a little more, I'm going to bring in our panelists here. Dr. S. Chatterjee, Senior Consultant, Internal Medicine, Apollo Hospitals. We also have Dr. Sunila Garg, former Director, Professor, Community Medicine, MAMC. Thanks both of you for joining us. A quick word, Dr. Sunila, if I could start with you on the kind of health complications that could really arise from consuming such substandard or poorly formulated drugs, especially when we speak of IV fluids, pediatric syrup given to children. The Karnataka government has pulled up some of the companies that are offering substandard quality drugs. What could it possibly do to us?
First of all, good evening and thank you for having me on the show. I think this is a very important issue which you have raised, and since last 4 decades, when I've been working with the public health department, which is having urban rural centers and procuring a lot of medicines, I realized that, whenever the medicines are procured, the quality certificate is obtained, and that is where along with the batch of the medicine comes in. So that's where, and it has been 1 or 2 times when the medicines are not of quality, which are withdrawn immediately. But coming to your question, that what it can do. If let's take an example of when we talk of sodium lactate or sodium chloride, or take for that matter anything which you have talked about, basically they will lead to not only morbidity but increased mortality. That is one thing which is very, very important. But important part also over here is that exactly how do these medicines enter the market? Each medicine undergoes, basically, apart from animal studies, they undergo, 3 phases of clinical trials, and the 4th phase is when they enter the market, where always, when we talk about safety and efficacy of the drug, that means how efficacious that drug is. So that means in all the 4 phases, these trials have not been conducted satisfactorily, so which raises a question on these pharma companies. So that is where, we need to also look at, not only the pharma companies need to be banned, but how, these trials have to be conducted. They have to be looked into totality, because you see, we are talking of age groups from pediatrics to geriatrics. And today we talk of One Health approach. That means these medicines can affect human beings. Ultimately, they can also affect animals and ultimately human beings also. So that is where, and they have whole impact on environment as well. So overall, we have to see that the quality of drug is very, very important, because we are dealing with human lives. So that is where, when Prime Minister Modi brought about the issue of generic medicine, the whole issue behind that is that they should not be substandard, and they have to be of proven quality and equally efficacious. So we need to be, constantly vigilant. And this is where all the, being a member of subject expert committee at CDSU, we realize and we focus very strongly on the quality of vaccines, on the quality of drugs, because at every phase of the trial, the safety and efficacy is very, very important. We are dealing with human lives, animal lives, and as I said, this can also contaminate and have effect on environment as well.
Right. Dr. Chatterjee, we're looking at medicines that are given to young babies that are now on this banned list. How does prolonged use of such drugs really complicate treatments for patients, whatever age group? Now, these drugs have been widely available. They're at local pharmacies and easily bought without a prescription even. Where do you stop it? Do you believe that this crackdown by the Karnataka Health Ministry, which is important and in the right direction certainly, but will this really avoid people at large from purchasing such medication? How will they be made aware? We are doing this show, yes. I'm not too sure how many of them actually, this information really actually trickles down to how many of them across the state. And this could be very well happening across India. This has been cracked down in Karnataka, but what happens then to these medicines available the rest of the country?
See, we have been always raising issues on this front. As Dr. Garg said, that when Prime Minister Modi said that why don't the doctors use all these generic drugs, our main objection was that there has to be quality control in the entire country. We have always doubted this, that you can really have a good quality control, because once the quality control is there, we are all there to prescribe generics because they're cheaper, and the patients whomsoever we are treating can take it on a long-term basis. And obviously, it always matters what is the cost of the drug and what is the efficacy of the drug. So I think Karnataka government has done a fantastic job, because we know that this is happening. We have had several experiences where we know that the drugs are not acting. And it's not only the children, when they're exposed to such drugs, they can have side effects. All these effects can happen even in young, healthy people. They can also have all these side effects because of the medications that we are giving, which don't have the proper amount of medication, which are contaminated with where other things are being combined. So they have highly detrimental side effects. Not even long-term, even short-term can have a very detrimental side effect if the quantities of the contaminant thing can be, if it is huge or large. So this has to be stopped. Government has to be very careful that all these generics that are manufactured are done in good centers and they are checked thoroughly before they reach the public or reach the hospitals. Because we at the other end can't really check which is a good drug and which is a bad drug, or which is basically, which doesn't have the right proportions of medication. So the people who are checking it have to be there, have to be honest, and it has to be done really correctly. Otherwise, we are in deep trouble.
You say deep trouble. Let me bring in Dr. Sunila on that. Just on the health complications, Dr. Sunila, what could these drugs do? We've mentioned, for the benefit of our viewers, on the number of banned drugs that have been highlighted by the Karnataka Health Ministry. That's on our screens there. But how do these drugs really interfere with the body, with drug resistance, and any kind of symptom or a repercussion that you should watch out for?
Yeah, particularly, you see, I think you'll remember that few days back we had also banned 135 fixed drug combinations also. When you talked about the side effects and all that, when we talk about injectables, they can lead to severe anaphylactic reactions, so which can also lead to death also. That is one thing which is, we have to be very, very careful. if we talk of, paracetamol-based medications, our ultimate immediate aim of any healthcare provider is that when a person reports with fever, bring down the fever before, you put on any other medicine. So you can imagine that if fever is not controlled, it can, and if we take the condition of malaria and all that, it can complicate the whole thing. And when we talk of, take of glimepiride and all that, which are used
Showing
for
on our
diabetes
channel here
and all
on,
that.
on News9, we are showing these IV fluids that are also
Yeah, so that is
substandard
why
quality, and that's
anaphylactic reaction
shocking.
is very common. I said anaphylactic reaction can act, which is very, very dangerous and which can not only lead in, in terms of illness, but also death. That is very important part. So we have to be very careful about the quality of injectables and even oral medicines also. When you talk about, the paracetamol tablets and all that, if the fever doesn't come down, basically, and whatever the cause may be, the fever has to be brought down first. It can end up in convulsions and all that. So that part is very important. And then glimepiride is one of the drugs, which I presume, which we normally use for diabetes. And if that is not controlled, person can have lot of opportunistic infections as well. Apart from uncontrolled, diabetes, can be renal failure and all that. So that is where, and you have put in this iron sucrose injection and all. So side effects are many-fold, and anaphylaxis is most dangerous, and these will not serve the purpose at all. And that is where the immediate action should be on part of, Drug Controller General of India, or we can say the drug inspectors, to make sure that they are withdrawn immediately from all the shops, all the organizations, wherever they are, all the hospitals.
And Dr. Sunila, you'd say what we see here in Karnataka that's available and banned is very well available even across other states of the country,
Yes.
right?
That's true. That's true. So basically, these drugs, against these 15 drugs, there will also be many drugs. Let me tell you, which are, of not proven standards, or they are not of quality. They are substandard drugs. So that is where we need to be very, very careful with regard to regular quality control of medicines. And these medicines, these 15, government has acted very promptly. But let me tell you, few days back, we also banned 135 fixed drug combinations also. So at each time, we say, no, savdhani hati, durghatna ghati. We have to be very, very vigilant about the use of drugs, because we are talking of drugs for human use, even veterinary use. You see, when just before this, you were showing a sort about, the killing of, the tigers over there in one of the places. So in Karnataka itself. So we need to be very careful about human health, first of all, animal health also, and we need to be particular about environment part. But again, we have to see that every drug has to be, because any drug which is to be dealt about treating, the human beings, we need to be very, very careful about the quality, because the reactions can be very severe and can lead to death.
Final word, Dr. Chatterjee, on really the signs to watch out for, especially for those with comorbidities, taking drugs of sub-quality or substandard quality itself. First of all, when you say substandard quality, it does not necessarily mean inefficient, that it's not effective enough. It could mean that, that these are dangerous proportions. Your word of advice.
See, as I said, it's very difficult for the patient to know whether he or she is taking the right drug or not. So finally what happens is, suppose you are suffering from an illness and you are given prescribed this drug by your treating doctor. The drugs are not effective, and in the long term, your disease will not be treated, and you can succumb to the illness. In extreme cases, you can succumb to the illness for which you are being treated. As Dr. Garg said, the immediate things that we have to look for is obviously any reactions, anaphylaxis, rashes on the body, which can also be sometimes dangerous to life, because especially when you're given intravenous drugs and they act immediately. And if it's a spurious drug, or not used in the right proportions, or not stored well, or not prepared by the company well, they can have dangerous side effects. So the immediate effects can happen then and there, especially anaphylaxis, where people can really succumb to it. And in the long term, you have used you have mentioned antibiotics, you have mentioned oral hypoglycemics or anti-diabetic medications. if they are not used in the right proportion, in the right quantity, and not the right drug, then all these diseases will have repercussions. And it might be a few months where you may not be doing well and might have major side effects because of these drugs. So when suppose a doctor has prescribed you a medication and you're not responding to it, obviously most of the patients behave that, oh, the drug has not been right, the drug has not suited us. But at the same time, we have to see that the doctors and the patients are aware that there are spurious drugs available or drugs which have not been manufactured, which might be the actual culprit. So people have to be aware, but more so, I would think that the government has to be really strict before they are passing the drug.